Well, welcome all of you. Good that you're here to this session on Nature's Everyone's Business, business input to the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Pavilion. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Martin Lok. I'm the Executive Director of the Capitals Coalition. We are a global coalition, collaboration of over 400 organizations from business, finance to governments, accountancy, bodies, civil society organizations, and many others. And we come together to transform the way how decisions are made by embedding the value of nature and people. One of the activities that we have been involved with since the start is setting up Business for Nature in 2019, together with WBCSD, WWF and many other partners. And we brought Business for Nature together because we felt that there really was a need for a consolidated business voice, a positive and ambitious business voice on nature in the light of the discussions and negotiations for a new global biodiversity framework, the new targets for the next 10 years to reverse nature loss and bring it back to a healthy planet. So what we are going to do this afternoon is we have a wonderful panel with 6 people from business as well as from organizations and governments to reflect on what they are doing and what is needed in the GBF to make it even more ambitious and more supportive for what business and finance is doing as part of solving nature's crisis that we are facing. Before we do that, can we get the next slide? Probably I have to do it myself. I managed it before. Maybe that was luck. It's on. So maybe you still need to learn me how to press for it, but we'll see that later. The program is here. We start with a video message by Basil van Haver, the co-chair of the open-ended working group. He will talk specifically on why it's so important that business take part in these decisions. Then we will have a keynote by Diane Holdorf, followed by a panel discussion with the people that are here. I'm just wondering a little bit if Diane is here, but let's see how that goes. Let's first move with the video message by Basil van Haver.
Good morning, good day, good evening. I'm very pleased to have been invited to talk to you about what's the role and what's the importance of business in the Global Biodiversity Framework. My name is Basil van Haver, and together with Francis Ogwal, we're the 2 co-chairs of the post-2020 working group. We've recently issued a new draft 1, and this draft is made along a mandate that was given to us by the parties to reflect the recent discussion that took place in Sept and SBI and include that into a new draft. I want to do 2 things today. Talk a little bit about the goals and the targets that are relevant to you, but also talk about what you can do engaging into the discussion and why it's important. So first, let's have a look at the goals and targets. You see in the goals, there is 4 goals for 2050, and they're phrased in words in terms of what do we want in terms of the outcome of our work. Healthy environment, a resilient and sustainable one, but also a system by which people needs are met. But let's focus on 3 targets that are really relevant to what you're doing. And that's target 14, 15, and 16. 14 is about mainstreaming of biodiversity in what government does, regulation, accounting, etc. And in particular, I want to note the notion of using biodiversity values in national accounts. So how do we account for that asset called nature? And also the impact of those government regulation in all sectors of the economy. 15 is of particular relevance to business. And we're talking all sides of business, small and large, public and private, and how you're going to be counting and assessing your dependencies on biodiversity and your impact on biodiversity as well, with an objective of reducing that impact by 50%. Also, reducing risk to your business coming from biodiversity and how the rest of our work can influence positively your business, moving toward to sustainability and taking into account all aspects of the cycle. We're talking here about the circular economy, and for the first time, we're talking also about the extractive industry. 16 is the last side of that triumvirate, which is how consumers are making choice. How can they provide it with options that are sustainable, and how do they have information that enable them to make the right choice? Now, very quickly, on target 19 on financial flow, you will see that we're talking about all financial flows, including private sector investment. Now, finally, I want to talk about your role and how you can engage into the discussion. We're going to be starting on August 23rd, the first part of the open-ended working group. Your participation is important. Your organization are present, they are participating, they're engaging, and we're looking forward to have them speak. It also is important that you engage with a country representative, the parties, and convey your views at a national level, but also as multilateral organization. We will be successful if we're all into it together, and that means that business has to be part of the solution. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to read the outcome of your meeting, and I'll remain available should you have any questions.
So thanks to Basil for bringing this video message to you. As I don't see Diane Holdorf right now, unless she starts waving at me, I propose that we just move forward with the program and we start with the panel. So if Alice and Renata and Pierre-Yves please can step forward and take a chair. So a warm welcome to all three of you, and we are going to talk about Business for Nature and their reflections on the first draft of the post-2020 GBF, Global Biodiversity Framework. This morning we already did a session, and there Eva Zabé, she highlighted the three key elements that we have brought to the negotiators. Key elements that has to do with the need to have a unifying and an ambitious global goal to go towards nature positive by 2030. Also the need to embed the value of nature into decision making by governments, by business and by finance. And last but not least, the need to rethink the incentives that are there, because many of the incentives that are there in the financial economic system do not reward nature. With this as a kind of a stage setter, I would like to move to the panel and start with you, Renata Polini, Head of Nature for Holcim. And first, let me congratulate you with the launch of your new commitment, which really is an inspiring commitment on nature. And can you please introduce Holcim shortly, and then talk about what you think of the Global Biodiversity Framework, the first draft. What are the good elements, but also where do you see needs for improvement to help support your action on nature?
Yes. Can you hear me? Good. So, first of all, thank you very much, Martin, for inviting me and the team. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So, Holcim, for those who do not know, is a cement, aggregate, and concrete business. We are the leaders in the segment. And as Martin said, we just launched yesterday our new nature strategy. And if I would think about the framework, basically, science, it's clear, right? we have 10 years to reverse the nature loss. And business has a key role to play because we depend on nature to prosper. Our operations depend on nature. So, however, to scale up and to accelerate our actions, we need government to set policies in the direction of nature policies, nature positive. So, in the current framework, the mission we have, it's very complicated, it's long, it's confusion. So what we are suggesting is to have a clear and a more less complex mission to tackle all the actors in the society, even the actors that do not understand a lot about biodiversity loss. So basically, I'm going to read loud to you guys what's the mission, the Business for Nature and its partners is suggesting. So the mission is the following: to take urgent action across society to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, to achieve a nature-positive world for the benefit of planet and people. Now, more than 900 companies signed the call to actions saying that nature is in everyone's business. So we are all in the same direction, the same path. And we need government to adopt this mission, because we believe that if we have these missions, it will accelerate our actions. It will help us, to not only the business but all the society to tackle towards a more nature positive world.
Thanks. Thanks for that. I hate these things, to be honest, but otherwise, that is a very good, good message that you're bringing to the table. So, Pierre-Yves, if I can move to you and ask you this similar kind of a question. So, when you read the Global Biodiversity Framework, what was your first take, and where do you see the improvements that are needed?
Maybe to start, Martin, I'm going to introduce Sept Environment and myself. So thank you for the invitation. I am in France, specialized on circular economy. We are a family company, an industrial one, which different plants over the world, mainly in France, but also in Europe, in South Africa, and in South America. So the founder of the Sept Environment Group, which is Joël Séché, created this one 30 years ago on the west part of France, and he started his activity on taking a high ambition on biodiversity dynamics. So we are one of the first company in France which has invested in biodiversity. We are the first company in France which has recruited ecologists as internal experts in our team. Now we have a huge service which is 10 ecologist people which are working on all our projects to analyze all the biodiversity impact of our projects. And for our company, biodiversity is it's one of our main strategic development. We have experience on this part, 30 years. We are inviting you to see it in our city if you want to see what is 30 years of results in biodiversity investment. And now we are part of different initiatives, and the main one is Act for Natures, which is organized by EPE, which I thanks to today. When I read the call to action, we signed immediately. We are interested in one part of the call to action, which is the financial one. We have a big issue now to invest on biodiversity. We have difficulties to get fundings, public and private, to finance our biodiversity investment. And we think as Sept Group, that is one of the main objectives that we have by signing this call to action. So thank you, Martin, to send us this call to action. It's a real pleasure to be part of it.
No thanks for that. I have to get away of this thing again. Excuse me not introducing you properly with the Sept group, but I really want to applaud that you signed the call to action so swiftly, and it's good to see also that from a waste company that you do that, because in nature there's no waste, and so more and more waste companies also come to the understanding that there's no real waste, there's only different sources that you can sell and repackage. So that is good. Thanks for your reflections. Alice, if I can bring you to the stage.
Please.
Working for OP2B as well as for Danone,
Yeah.
two hats. You can choose your own hat here today.
That's a luxury, thank you.
Can you please reflect on the Global Biodiversity Framework and the first draft? Is it good enough, yes or no?
It's in good way. It's shaping out quite good. But maybe just 2 words on my 2 hats. I'm going to be super, super fast. First of all, I work for Danone. And you know Danone is a food company, but we are also heavily committed to lead transformation in the agriculture sector. Agriculture is absolutely impactful on biodiversity, is a key sector to shift. It's a nature-based solution. And so Danone, for the past 5 years, have been really working on shifting agriculture practices to regenerative agriculture. So my second hat, OP2B, One Planet Business for Biodiversity, is really a coalition that has been set up and launched in the UN Climate Action Summit in 2019. We managed to gather 25 plus companies that are in the agri-food sector, but also in the agriculture sector, such as Nestle, of course Danone, Nestle, Unilever, and so on and so forth, in order to really accelerate and learn on each other's, in order to really manage to shift and go faster together. Because our conviction, and I think I heard it everywhere, is that we only have 9 yields left. So we really have to go beyond competition. That's what you do also in Business for Nature. So stop there. On the framework, yes, we were really very happy to see that there was a systemic approach. And I would go back to what Basile Van Have said on those 3 targets, 14, 15, and 16. We cannot achieve such a challenge if we don't come together, meaning 14, the governments, 15, the business, and I'll elaborate on this, and then, of course, 16, the consumers or civil society. We call them customers or consumers. But if consumers and customers don't give the right approach or the right welcome to what we do, we're helpless. So it's really a systemic approach, and we really welcome with very much appreciation that those 3 main stakeholders are quoted in the biodiversity framework. On business targets, the real thing is that we need to be specific. If we are not specific, nothing is going to happen. Okay, wonderful, good words, good intentions, good commitments, and then what? So Business for Nature is recommending just a little tweak in the vocabulary that is used for the target 15. I maybe don't have time to elaborate. Just one. We suggest to add disclose to reports. Just on the 15, they say that for the moment the sentence is you have to report. And we think that we should also disclose, meaning that we must make it public. We have to take public commitments and disclose rather than report, then can be done internally. But my real or our but Danone also, real recommendation is please let's go further in this reporting and in this framework. Let's go until reporting and standardized reporting frameworks. There has been a fantastic job done on climate by the SBTI and also the TCFD. We need to have the same. Why? Because in fact, if you don't create a level playing field, if you don't push people to report on the same targets, on the same metrics, first you won't be able to coordinate all of them, and then you won't be able to really compare. They won't be comparable. So it's really very important. We took 9 years to make the science-based target for climate. We have to accelerate. And for this, we really need the help and the support of governments. We need them also to push us to do it, to recognize that this SBTI and TNFD work is absolutely key. And we need also them to help business learn and train, because I'm a big company. I have people. I can pay people to learn and be able to report. But then what's going to happen to SMEs or smaller companies? So creating this level playing field is really key to assure that the competition will be fair. The second is that the transparency and the trust, we will be able to earn it. And the second, we have to have trainings and help in order for all companies to be able to really report on this. I've been long, sorry.
No, I don't want to say that you're too long. It wouldn't be true. And I think the issue that you're raising, that yes, governments should ask or mandate a disclosure and actions, but also at the same time governments should support businesses, especially the smaller ones than Danone, so that they are able to live up to that mandate. I think that's an important thing that you bring to the table. The other thing, what you said, is the ambition that all three of you show here, that is in business, reminds me a little bit of what Johnny Hughes, the executive director from WCMC, but also one of the ICN councils, said this morning, that in the current negotiations for the CBD, sometimes parties get the feeling that business is more ambitious than some of the parties, which is kind of a new reality. Nevertheless, it's not enough. And so going back to you, Renata, Holcim has all those wonderful products that you're developing. So this concrete that you can use in a city where trees then still can get the water. I really like that example this morning in a session. So, but if you want to sell more of this product, how could, it's a very practical question, but what would the GBF need to add to that to support businesses to sell, make money in a good way for a nature positive world?
So basically, as I said, we just launched our new nature strategy yesterday. With the nature strategy, we are committing to be nature positive by 2030. So we took a very bold commitment, but it's very solid, because what we are saying is that we are going to measure our biodiversity impact, and we are going then to put actions in place to improve the biodiversity level. The same thing we are doing for water. We are reducing our water footprint in our production, so to produce our products and solutions. And we are then replenishing this water that we cannot reduce. We are replenishing them we are giving back to the communities we are working with in the same watershed, plus the nature, right? So we think, also another thing that we are committing that I cannot forget, it's about nature-based solutions. So we are committing to bring more nature to the cities by investing and then implementing with our customers nature-based solutions. So basically, we think, Holcim, that we set a very good strategy, a very difficult one. It took many months for us to develop. But we know we are a large company, but our impact in the world is limited because we are large, but we are not everyone. And so we really think that commitments like that should be taken by government at the highest political level to help others to join us, amplifying our the actions in nature, to be nature positive, to have a nature positive future. So there is really a need for this, accelerate these nature-based and nature positive actions, and also like clear commitments for government.
Yeah, so my understanding of what you're saying is, yes, Wholesome, we are a big company, we can already do a lot of our own. We have developed a strategy for that. But it would really give other companies the comfort to know that government is framing a societal goal into a nature positive direction, and that all business should be part of that. And so this providing comfort, because there's really a clear ambition from governments. Would that also be something that a family company like yours, Pierre-Yves, is waiting for, or do you go ahead of that? What would you need from governments?
I will take the example of circular economy. Circular economy is making business with environmental subjects. You have less final waste, and you have more reused and recycled. So the business is growing, and the final waste is decreasing, and the consumption of raw materials is also decreasing. So I think we have to take the same examples that for circular economy or for climate change with the TCFD way, for example. But for biodiversity, it's really complex because objectives and results are all different, and it's really difficult to have the same comparison to make scenarios which are implementing in big company, in small company, in France or all over the world. So I think the main difficulties is the complexity of biodiversity compared to other subjects in the environmental sectors. And I think government needs all the experiments, the results that we have, all of us as companies, because I think we can help them to take the right decision and to show the right path.
Yes, so the reflection that you're sharing here really brings back the discussion that we had in the session immediately before this one, where we also saw that yes, there's a lot of experience already going on, but sharing it and government helping to build the capacity with businesses to start implementing it by themselves really is needed to overcome the fear that it's too complicated. And so this also goes back to your issue, Alice, because you started to talk about the need that governments should support business to do this. Can you elaborate on that? Did you also mean that it's for the other companies and not so much for the Danone, or how do you see that?
Well, thank you, Martin. I thought I would elaborate on SBTI and TCFD and how it worked and how it was impactful for Danone. And maybe I can take 1 minute, and then I will go to another topic which is really, for me, absolutely critical. The first one is that just on climate, Danone, we took very ambitious commitment in 2015 for climate. We were the first to pledge that on the 3 scopes of our activity, meaning agriculture included, we would become climate neutral in 2050. Great. And then in 2017, what happened that was absolutely critical, and where we worked for 2 years, is that our targets were endorsed by the SBTI. meaning that this non-for-profit organization, scientifically led, said, okay, they are in the right path, they are doing things. And ever since, we are rated by CDP every year. So our pathway is controlled by non-profit, by third parties every year. And this is how the things happen, and this is how you can make it happen. And I stop there. But what is really important also, I'm working in agriculture, I'm working about shifting agricultural practices. It's absolutely critical that we change the subsidies. We have to really redirect the subsidies. We cannot go on. There will be no new capital coming out. The states are very, very heavy in debt today. And we have to stop doing harm, meaning stop having harmful subsidies that are listed by the OECD and redirect this money in order to really accelerate change and help agriculture transformation. Because what do you mean when you say, oh, we have to embed nature value in all your decisions? It makes that everything is going to cost more. If you have to put the externalities inside your business, which you have to do, for sure everything is going to cost more, and for sure the consumer won't be able to have everything. So we will have to have more subsidies in order to help the farmers to pay for ecosystems mixed services, to help farmers to shift and help consumers to support this trend. Otherwise, we are not collectively going to happen. We're not going to succeed. So this redirection of subsidies is super important. And for the moment in the framework, we are not exactly there yet. Meaning that, in fact, we are still trying to say, okay, we're going to reduce as much as possible. But we have to go further, and we have to also, but we need to be really very specific on subsidies. All subsidies for agriculture are not everyone's. Some are very useful, but then like the EU did, you have to put something to understand that those subsidies are pointing to transform agriculture practices, and this must be the filter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I want to ask you to give an applause for this panel. Great contributions on the need. You can applaud. Great contributions on the need to have a clear guidance and a target that is ambitious and inspiring, on the need to embed the value of nature and people in a way that is simple enough to do it, not only for corporates but also for SMEs, and provide the support from governments and from others to help them with that. And last but not least, the need to really rethink the subsidies and the incentives if they are not supporting nature positive outcomes. So thank you all. If you can step down, we can bring in the new round shortly after this, but first we go to you all, to both the audience here in Marseille, but also to those of you that are listening to us online, and we want you to grab your phone and go to menti.com. We are all Zooming now already for ages, it seems, so you're probably used to go and use menti.com. The numbers are there, 3272 3429, and we will have 3 simple questions for you. Please launch. So the first question is, provide 3 words to qualify the current draft. And with these 3 words we will create a word cloud. So you just 3 times give an answer, and then we will get a flavor what you think of the Global Biodiversity Framework draft at this moment. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. see some of you typing, not all. Maybe the battery is low of your phone, something like that, I don't know. Could happen, happened to me this morning. It's Chinese, that's an interesting one. I give you one more minute because I know it takes some time before we go to the next one. And just to kind of get you ready for that, you will need to type in another answer and not just clicking a box. So shall we go to the next one? We go to the next question, which is the same question that I just asked before. What is needed to accelerate business actions? So just simple words, what do you think is needed to accelerate business actions? You're getting good at this. It goes much faster this time. That's good. So let's go to the third question. Have you witnessed a growing interest and understanding in the business community around you? Yes or no? So this is more simple as a question. So we have 12 respondents. That's not a huge number, to be honest, but still it's good. Thank all of you who were among those 12 and put in your thoughts. Can you show them one by one so I can add a little bit of reflections to the answer? And then, no, just the final, the outcome of all questions. Sorry. So the words to qualify the current draft, the biggest word is complex and ambitious. So those are the two big words. So I think that's a positive one. Yes, it's ambitious, but it's also complex. The need to accelerate business actions, the two biggest words are awareness and regulation, which is quite an interesting combination too. And then the third one showed us that, and wow, 3 more got it done. Thank you for that. That business, yes, is more visible in the biodiversity discussions. 5 of us think sort of, but there's much more needed. And no one here, at least no one who used Menti today in this session, thinks it's still something that is not understood by business. So that is some movement in the good direction. So let's move to the next round of our panel discussion. I would like to call to the floor Claire Toutony, the Managing Director of EPE, Hajo Haanstra, Netherlands Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, and André Hofman from the MAVA Foundation. So you can put down, now you can breathe, which is good, of course. And Claire, ladies always go first. So, huh? No.
Let's be inclusive. I start.
Yeah. So you're the managing director of EPE and of course a good friend and partner in Business for Nature.
The founding partner of Business for Nature,
even. And also the founding power behind Act for Nature.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
So-
We are also the French partner of WBCSD. For those of you who know WBCSD, World Business Council for Sustainable Development.
Yeah, so Alice had 2 hats and you have 4 or maybe even more. So that's
24 hours a day only.
that is good. So you've heard the business reflections on the first post-2020 GBF. What are your reflections on it, and how do you value the appreciation by business?
Actually, I support exactly the message that they give, is that voluntary action, we know the problem. Of course, those members of EP are aware of biodiversity issues. For more than 10 years, we work on it. We know solutions. We produced last year a very interesting publication about solutions.
Yep.
Oh, it's okay, don't worry. About solutions, and these solutions are of several nature. One is to reduce pressure, and you know the 5 pressures. One is to create positive biodiversity, which is more innovative, R&D, nature-based solutions. How can we do something positive to nature? And the third category is how do we change the way management in companies, decision processes, to put biodiversity in investment, in R&D, in human resources. And so we have listed good examples and good practice of that. But when you look at what it takes to reverse climate change, reversing climate change and biodiversity is still more difficult. So voluntary action will never be sufficient. You need to reduce some activities that are actually profitable. You need to do some things in very different ways than what you are usually doing. You need to invest in a different way, sometimes very often less profitable. So you will not manage to have it at scale unless you have regulation. And this regulation is also difficult to make because markets, Alice said, we want cheap products. The customer wants cheap products, which sometimes means biodiversity is not taken care of. So we need this policy framework in a rather detailed, very, at many places, very local. When you look at urbanism, land planning is local decisions where a company can say, I would like land to do this and that. And yes, and how much and less, and so the discussion is difficult and needs regulation. And sometimes it's very national, European, global, when it is to trade and level playing field between products in countries where biodiversity regulation is high ambition and some places where it is less. So you need this regulation, and regulation is sometimes also difficult because business is defending itself. Businesses, I mean, the progressive businesses that you see here for the first time in IUCN Congress is a very, very small part of the total business world. And this awareness is still limited. So you need to bring many more, and you need to fight against some forces that say, hey, my business is profitable, I want to continue it, and take climate change and the coal and oil business is difficult. So you need this dialogue, continuous, with progressive business at the table, saying what they need to deploy their solutions at much bigger scale and pace. So that's needed. And what my conclusion is that, yes, of course, the global framework needs to, post-2020 framework needs to be made more ambitious. It needs to be complemented at many other levels. And Europe will play an important role in negotiations, because now it is in April next year, and it will be under French presidency, and the European agenda will be probably pushed a little bit higher, also in this in ambition, in this negotiation of the framework. So, in order for business to push their ambition and detail the ideas as to how to progress it, we invite you to a European Business and Nature Summit organized in cooperation with the European Commission, where this dialogue, public-private policy dialogue on how to foster more ambition into biodiversity policies, into all policies, how to mainstream biodiversity in all European policies, will be open.
Okay. Thanks, Claire, for that. And so what you say is, yes, the GBF is good. It needs to be much stronger. But you're also pleading a little bit for more mandatory requirements. And so I want to go to Hayo on this, being representative from government, so able to come with regulation, if you want. So can you reflect on what is your take of the GBF and how it works, and what is needed to make it more strong?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
It's on. All right. Thank you, Martin, and also thank you for inviting me in this panel, and also thank the former panelists for their presentation, because I think they were very wise and also give some to chew on for the next couple of months. I'm working with the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, and I'm the head of delegation for the CBD negotiations. Where are we coming from? Because I think a lot of it changed the last 10 years. You said 10 years, and I think that's right. And I was there in 2013 in Cancun during the Conference of the Parties, and we also organized a meeting on business and biodiversities, and we had three or four participants. So it was really a sort of measurement. It was not really interesting. And since then, a lot have been changed inside the discussions within the COP, as well as outside. And we also then started a small program. It's called Greening Finance, Financing Green, because we thought you have to look at it from both sides and then bridging the gap between those two. So look at the financial institution and private sector and try to communicate with them, learn what kind of language they use, but also otherwise people who are working in the field on project basis on nature also learn to think more in an economic way. One of the outcomes was, of course, for example, the transparency scheme and the TNFD and the PBOF and all these platforms where we now discuss more disclosure of all kind of information on impacts and on being nature positive. And it was good to hear from the other panelists that it should be mandated to disclose all this information. I think that's something the Netherlands could support, although there are other 190 parties within the negotiations who might have another idea on that. But I think that's a very important route and process, and we really have to follow that and further improve it, because that's very important to be transparent. What is the impact and how you can be nature positive as a firm in order to do that monitoring and reporting later on. That's also something where the Netherlands was really highly involved in setting it up and also participating. One additional in that kind of process is also the role of the central banks in the whole idea of investments by private and financial institutions. And recently the National Bank, they also present the report on what are the risks of countries and banks on biodiversity. Then a step to the global framework. Yes, it is complex, and everything what was on the board is right. It's a complex issue, biodiversity, and as an outcome, then the framework is also complex. But complex is not very difficult, because you only have to study what's in, and then you understand it. It's more complicated when people are involved, because people have different, of course, reasons for looking at that kind of framework, and that's, I think, the most important thing to learn. In that sense, also our Dutch position, we think it's very important to have an ambitious framework with targets and milestones and everything what's in. But we also think that the Archie targets were already quite ambitious. It's not the problem of the targets and the milestones, it's the problem of the implementation. And therefore, our main focus is on more how to improve implementation. And we think there are different routes. One of the routes is strengthening monitoring, reporting, but also review, and also ratcheting up systems in which you can say something about what's further needed. And in that sense, monitoring and reporting, etc., and disclosure of activities by private sector is very important, and you also have to arrange that in the whole system advance. What's also crucial in the whole system, and I think there's not a lot of discussion at the moment on it, but finally we will have to prepare MBSEP, so we have to update our MBSEP, our National Biodiversity Action Plans, and also the National Finance Plans, and especially the National Finance Plans. That could be a very interesting instrument where also it gives a sort of context for private and financial institutions to invest in whatever has to be done in countries. At the moment, it's still missing a really link with this business. It's there, but very, very small. But I think for the coming period, we really should have a discussion how to improve financial plans, how to link or develop instruments which could be useful for private and financial institutions so that they can invest in landscapes or whatever is needed for biodiversity or from their own perspective.
Okay, so
Finally.
Finally.
Yeah. I'm working for the government. We always have finally.
Yeah, but maybe keep that for the last round.
I can keep it for the last
Yeah.
round.
So.
If you have to but you have to probably remember me, otherwise I forget.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And André, bringing you to the floor. André Hofman, president of the MAVA Foundation, a foundation that supports many projects that is bringing together business and nature and the economy and nature in different ways. Finance also to the table. So having heard the discussion around the Global Biodiversity Framework and business stake, what is your view on this? How do you see it, and what are the holes that you detect in the framework so far?
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Yes, I am the chair of the MAVA Foundation, which has been one of the most significant donors to projects for conservation and nature, in particular species and species in West Africa, in the Mediterranean, and in the Swiss region, the Alpine region in a broader sense. Yes, we have, since November last year, distributed more than 1 billion Swiss francs into these different projects over the 15 years of our foundation. This is important. This has been efficient in certain places, but not everywhere. So came rather quickly this idea: what are we going to do to change the rule of the game? And we think we need to look much more at accounting not that well, at the way finance is working and interfacing. What are the root causes of the destruction of nature? It's not some sort of stupidity or some sort of avidity and aggressivity of humanity. It's just that we are asking the wrong questions. We're not posing the right theories. If we really want to know what impact we're having on nature as humanity, we will need to do a new type of accounting. And I think that's a new way of measuring impact. And I think that's one of the reasons why we started getting involved into this new approach, which is a bit new for us still. You know, we're learning, but it is something that I think deserves attention, and we've been trying to identify the best possible partner to support this work and to make sure that this very important work goes on. Now, if you look at the other side, I happen to also be the vice president of our family company, which is and this since 26 years now. And this is a pharmaceutical business, an important, large pharmaceutical, in fact, it's the largest pharmaceutical business in the world. And we need to make sure that we identify the issues at that angle as well. What are we confronted with in business? So I have this wonderful opportunity where I split my time between doing business and the other side doing NGO, doing good work. And you know what? It's the same people, you know? They're just as nice as one side from the other. The people in business are not there in order to drink the milk of babies or something like this. They're there because they want to contribute to society. Our family company says we want to do today what the patient needs tomorrow. So we want long term, we want sustainability, we want to make sure we have sufficient innovation to come up with new ideas. We need to be able to construct a sustainable future. And we will not be able to do that if we only concentrate onto the short-term profit maximization. You know, the liberal economists of the late 70s, the Nobel Prize winner Milton Friedman, the business of business is business. All this was very helpful, but it's finished. It's dead. We need a new idea. So on this conversation of today, how do we make sure that businesses will behave in a way which is not as predatory as it has been? Well, we need to make sure that we actually measure the right things. And the different initiatives, and forgive me if I cannot list all the acronyms that all of you seem to be incredibly at ease with. I get very confused after more than 2 letters, I get in trouble. But the point is that in the long run, we are going to solve this as humanity. We need to be together, concentrating what is the common good. You know, that's heavy lift. It means changing society completely. It means rebuilding community. It means reintroducing a certain sense of togetherness. It means, well, we have a little bit long on the panel. Perhaps we can go to all the things we need to change. But for me, the biggest mover will be this. The motivation has to be, how can we do best? How can we create prosperity for as many people as possible in, I'm afraid to say, rather short period of time, because the house is burning.
Yeah, so also you wear 2 hats, by the way. So many people wear all these hats. So that.
But I have a big head, you know.
No. But that is good. And but also the message that you bring is you're just one person, André Hofman. So all the number of hats doesn't matter that much. And so what we need to do, and you kind of challenged everyone, we have to change the way how we measure success. So that's the most simple thing.
We have to change our definition of success. Success is not having the newest car in the garage. Success is not having the prettiest wife. I mean, and this is a contentious statement en principe. I make that. You know, it strikes me that we have to define what it means to be a good citizen. You know, there's this Oxford philosopher who wrote about how can we be good ancestors. I'm very motivated by this. I'd like the children of my children to be proud of what I've done. And it's much more important than what happens today. You know, this cathedral thinking, starting today, something that perhaps only the next generation will see the benefit of.
Yes, so thanks for that too. And I mean, it's quite striking. I think the discussion that we had before in the first panel really hovered around measurement. How do you do that? How do you make sure that that also businesses are mandated for that? How do you incorporate it in government policy? So government shouldn't ask business to do one thing and then not supporting it using its own subsidies and incentive mechanisms. So very good points bringing to the table. At the same time, we are now with 900 businesses that are supporting the call to action, which really is a great effort. We are moving towards 1,000, I think, and I'm quite optimistic that by the moment that the COP virtually will be opened in China online in the course of October, that we will have hit the 1,000 number. But still the question could be, how can we really skyrocket those numbers to a much higher level? And I mean, maybe bringing in first you. Grab the mic, you're entitled to do that. So you already showed with Act for Nature how to do that quite quickly. But if you want to go for higher numbers, you do not have to say a kind of a target that you would like to aim for, but you are entitled to do that if you want to. But what do we need to do to get more businesses to sign the call to action?
I think these 1,000 people who have signed the call to action can be ambassadors, and they can convince. They have an ecosystem around them. They have suppliers, they have partners, they have, and so they can talk about it. And if they do, then it's still several months where they can convince other people that this is an important topic, because you can have an ambitious agreement, but if it is not appropriated and accepted by the wide public, it will not have these difficult consequences that policies will be more stringent, and instead of just counting something, you will have to count something else, and change is difficult. So you need to make them ambassadors, not only in this signature, but also in talking themselves in their, and that's one of the things with Act for Nature is a commitment scheme. Please go and visit the booth at the entrance. And companies will talk about what they are doing, and they are taking real actions. We will also publish a report about the first 2 years. But what they are doing is that they are talking, one of the most practical commitment, what they are doing, most of them are doing, is talking to their employees. And then you get thousands of people who get, oh, what I was liking, I like biodiversity, I like nature, and I am allowed to do it. I am allowed to think of it, work with it in my job, and they like it, and they move, and so you get a lot of impulse from that. And the recommendation is really that ask the companies who have signed to talk.
Yes. So, Andre, I see that you immediately want to come into that.
I immediately want to subscribe to this. There is one thing that we need to keep into line, that we are all in this together. And who is going to change society? You have employees, you have customers, you have regulators, not only, of course, and then the youth. Anybody under 20 is looking for a way of kicking our head. You need to penetrate widely. And if I can just add a little bit of, we've succeeded in business to convince you all that your needs are not the one that you really have. What you really want is love, is attention, is somebody holding your hands, realizing yourself. And how do you translate that? The new dress, the new car, the new bottle of wine. Somehow, if we use this incredible persuasion power with all the technologies of modern marketing to reach out to companies that there needs to be a change in paradigm, we could be incredibly potent. And I don't agree that it's going to be more expensive. It's only going to be more expensive because we look at the short-term cost. And if we change the norm, okay, we don't have the time until the next conference, but this is what we should embark on.
Yes. So the ideas coming out here right now is to probably start a kind of a tap the shoulder program where everyone who signed the call to action should reach out to one customer, one employee, one person below 20, and maybe to one regulator. I'm not sure about the regulator. But
don't count.
And don't count. But it is about people. It is about reaching out to people. And so take it from the tables where it's kind of negotiate and expert talk also when it concerns the GBF. And maybe Hayo, you had another thing that you didn't mention before. If you first answer this question on how can we skyrocket the numbers.
No, I think we were discussing then business, but I think there's also a role for the government to do that, and we could also use that same kinds of actions in our policy work, in our politics. That would be, I think, very helpful also for you, for getting more actions in your companies. How to? What was your question? What kind of actions you want
how to skyrocket the number of businesses signing up for the call to action? That was the question.
Yeah, no, just one example. What we have been doing in the Netherlands, what we did is to, for the last 2 years, organize a process in which everybody, all stakeholders, business as well as NGOs, could come with proposals for how they contribute towards biodiversity loss. And up to now we have, I think, 140 concrete projects, which also could be sent to the international platform for that, the action plan for Sharm el-Sheikh Kunming. And this is sort of the Netherlands, Sharm el-Sheikh Kunming. And it was very interesting to see who all contributed. Next September we will have sort of a launch of that action plan where my minister will receive all the actions to make it also a little bit more politic, and also showing that there are more people contributing towards nature than these things. So that's the national part. The other thing is the cliffhanger. That's what we started a few months ago. We call it the interface dialogue on finance and biodiversity. And what we are doing there is maybe more where we were coming from. What was the question? That what in the negotiations we saw that a lot of parties were still a little bit hesitating on to give the floor to business and to have business involved. And that is a part of that is because they don't know what it is. And so we thought it could have a sort of platform to discuss that kind of aspects with business and with the community and also among parties. So now we have the interface dialogue for biodiversity and finance, in which already I think 30 parties said they want to join, and a lot of other organizations. We will have a session next week, I think, on the 8th of September. And what we are doing, the setup is in such a way that first you have a discussion between parties and the business community, to say. And then later on, there's a sort of closed session in which parties could then address. So what were they saying? How can we indeed make it a part of the negotiations or not? And all in a very informal, formal way. So that's a little bit the action we are introduced a few months ago, and we are working together with France and with the UK on this issue. It's really a cooperative action.
So just from my understanding, what the Netherlands is doing, or maybe also what France is doing, is that moving towards a non-state actor commitment, comparable to what was happening in Paris? We are discussing that with the CBD already a long time, whether that's needed or not. And it's not very, I mean, the support is not good enough to already have the yes there. There will be an event on this later this week here, and there also will be a call to really move into that direction. Is that what the Netherlands is doing for themselves?
That was the first. That's what we're doing for ourselves. But the interface is more oriented on the negotiation on GBF. What should be in there in order to make it possible for business and financial institutions to participate and contribute in the implementation. And especially the word voluntary commitments. It has been a long discussions because everybody thinks it's something different, and especially the word commitment. That's so difficult for a lot of parties and colleagues of mine. And even though when you explain to them that it's voluntary, so it's not really a commitment, it's your own commitment, a commitment to yourself, what you're saying. Yeah. So we now, I think, it's voluntary contributions. That's the term. But still, there is of course the action agenda, Kunming Sharm el-Sheikh action agenda, and that should, in a sense, collect all the commitments in which that is a sort of commitment jointly towards the GBF. And the only interesting thing, and that's still under discussion, how that also could really link up to the GBF and the monitoring, etc. So you stop here?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to stop. I think you already wanted to start talking on this topic too.
I wanted to say there is a difference between climate and biodiversity, which is that people like nature. Even many people love nature, and not only in this room. In France, for example, the awareness on climate 2-3 years ago was not very high despite COP21 and so on, but 86% of people are actually worried because of the mosquitoes, lack of insects, and and the energies that you could capture from going to the population is actually quite big. Would be, I mean, that's why it works with employees. Employees are a force for commitment. And I think this is, I mean, an action agenda, as Sylvie Lemet was discussing this morning, with please people say what you are doing could be Buster. Sharm el-Sheikh to Kunming has been a difficult road, I have to say. We actually helped suggested it should be created. It has not been very strongly advertised either. But such a platform is actually it was very supportive in the case of climate. So maybe it's something to be tried in the 5 months that are 6 months that are still there. The second thing I wanted to say is, don't make biodiversity against climate. It will be only one ecological transition, and this change in way of life and so on keeps the two in the same box. Yeah.
Yeah. So
which is not in the global framework yet.
Yeah.
I just wanted to react very quickly on one particular point. The idea that people like nature, yes, but we have lost 60% of the vertebrates in the last 40 years. You know, the idea that voluntary contribution is some way. When we leave voluntary contribution to people in climate, they say they want to be carbon neutral in 2050. I mean, this is just not good enough. We really have an emergency in front of us. And yes, people like nature, and nature is an incredibly important thing for all of us, but I'm not quite sure that has proven a successful way of dealing with it.
So, but what do we need then? So, and going back to the tapping on the shoulder, apologies if I'm putting you on the spot, but you're tapping on a lot of shoulders, usually in Davos in January. And so how can we bring that also to the to the table, and what kind of discussions do you expect next year there, when in the more or less in the same period, the negotiators of the CBD will be there?
I mean, I think what people are looking for, and when I say people, it sounds a bit reductive. I mean, I have this sort of conversation quite regularly with people who are telling me, you know, we have a glass of wine together, we after office hours, we're happy, we worry about our children, what's going to happen in the next generation, what can we do for them? And then we have some very reasonable conversation. Yes, the idea of looking at targets, the idea of looking at one way of structuring all this is interesting. But then the same guy goes into the office the next morning, closes his door, and thinks only about his budget. I'm only limited to what amount of money that I can make. So I think what we really ought to be doing, and that's a sort of conversation we can all involve in, it's tell people it's all right. You don't have to be a bastard to be successful. You can actually be nice. You can be nice, and if you're nice in life, be nice in the office. You know, I spend about 80% of my time outside of the home in the office, or on something similar to an office. If I didn't enjoy it, if I couldn't live my values, if I couldn't be myself, you know, I would stay in bed. And I think that very simple switch, you know, because that has to be the only hope. That's one of the reasons why we do all these things, is that the way we're going to be able to change humanity is when we're going to be able to flick all these switches, you know, all these individual switches of people who are wanting to make a positive contribution, but who don't feel empowered to do so. You need an authorization to be yourself. I find that frightening.
Please go ahead, Claire.
I fully agree with what you say, and it's so nice that you are heading such a big company, because one of the features in Act for Nature commitment is that these commitments are company specific and they are signed by the CEO. And if they are not signed by the CEO, they are not published. And in the case of some companies, not only is it signed by the CEO, but since it is commitments, they are actually discussed in the ExCo. And one CEO came last October to present his commitments and said, I had them 3 times in the ExCo because they had to be okay and everybody had to understand what we were doing. And this role of CEOs, you can say, oh, this is a French centralization kingdom. They kill the kings, they like CEOs. But the reality is that it does what you say. It is legitimating, then employees feel empowered and allowed to mention it, allowed to mention it in meetings, allowed to change something, to have it embedded into the company processes, which usually don't do it. So that's very important what you are saying. Thank you.
So I hope Mr. Macron will get it through his Conseil des Ministres, what he told us yesterday, because that's important.
So that was not... It was not for the mic, but it was a dream and a hope that a lot of us, I think, heard. So I want to bring this this panel to a close. I thank you all for contributing your thoughts. I think what you shared with us is, if we really want to skyrocket the numbers of businesses, we need to have a people-oriented approach. It is about people, bringing in people, with a tapping on the shoulder approach. So this is maybe something we need to develop. And also we need to think about approaches where business together with governments are discussing how we can move this forward. With that, thank you very much. Please give an applause to our panel. And I think, yes. Yeah. So thanks all. We are closing this session now. So you've heard all the excellent speakers talking about what is needed to make the Global Biodiversity Framework more successful, more ambitious. I don't repeat all the things, just maybe the 3 simple messages of Business for Nature on the first draft. Be more ambitious, go for nature positive by 2030, embed the value of nature and capital in decision making by business, finance and consumers. So targets 14, 15 and 16 really are our key thing, and make sure that money is also targeted towards the outcomes that we want. So rethink and reformulate the incentive mechanisms. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. See you later. change the program a little bit.